Let's go! Best of 5 to determine who makes it into TSL9. Top left of Cosmic Sapphire. It is the Zerg, Reynor. Bottom right, it is the Red Protoss, ShoWTimE. So Reynor playing Zerg. It's a bit of a question nowadays. He does seem to only play Protoss when he is facing another Zerg. He doesn't want to play the mirror matchup. With how apparently coin flippy people consider ZvZ now these days. Apparently, especially on the new maps. So, you know, we've been told that, I think, with a couple of interviews in Valencia. I could see why it'd be very tempting to just play an entirely different race. Otherwise, I can guarantee that Reynor is still best with his Zerg, but with a very coin flippy matchup, yeah, it might just be A, funner. I don't know how much people appreciate ZvZ nowadays. And 2, actually, like, potentially better. It'd be one of the first times in StarCraft 2 that we really had someone who was capable of playing the race pick. We've had people do it, but then not really be all that impressive. We've also had random players that really just, after 2011, could not keep up. So this would be, you know, if Reynor did this legitimately for, you know, all the way up to Atlanta, for instance, then he'd make another mark on StarCraft 2 history, for sure. But that kind of remains to be seen. It would not be that surprising to have him 2 months from now be like, nah, I'm back to playing Zerg and everything. Matchup. I gotta practice. I gotta play my best, right? But if he really saw potential in this whole kind of PvZ choice, PvZ striker, then that would be really cool. It would. ShoWTimE, nothing interesting about his race choices. He's always played Protoss. In fact, I think he's literally always played Protoss since he first played StarCraft 2. We have had a couple of people mention that they played another race first. I want to say Reynor might have played Terran first, something like that. Maybe Clem played Zerg first, or, you know, getting the two youngsters confused. Something like that. We've also had, for instance, Classic move from Terran to Protoss from Brood War to StarCraft 2, but that just made sense stylistically. It is still also very rare. Usually people, they just pick something pretty early on in their StarCraft careers and they run with it. Anyways. Oh, and you know what? I guess I'm going to go over this because people are inevitably going to bring it up. Yes, I know that Scarlet played Protoss versus Dongregoo and cheesed him out in one map, blah, 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 one series, but, like, let's all just understand that that was really once in how many years? And Scarlet has also played Protoss in other, like, online tournaments, but she'd never done it, for instance, at a offline DreamHack like Reynor has done. So let's just make it clear. Be one of the first. Okay. Second Oracle. 2 Oracles so far. I'm thinking about a third. I think ShoWTimE had already chosen the triple Oracle opener as his bread and butter, even when the Stargate play was still very, very popular, which I was so happy because I wanted to continue casting one of my favorite Protoss players, but it got so difficult when everyone just played fucking Fortress. So I was happy when he went back to triple Oracle and possibly at the time into more Charge Lot Archon, but then also occasionally bringing out the Blinkstalker once again, Blinkstalker into Colossus. The idea of a Blinkstalker build composition is not new in this matchup. It's happened before many times in its history, but the way that it is now being used, the hero style of play, is rather unique to hero. But yeah, ShoWTimE was willing to experiment over there. I mean, we're thinking about some of the Trap and Parting games from 2 years ago, where there was like the map Submarine and Blinkstalker Colossus with the force fields. Yeah, it's still not quite that, is it? Because they're not really looking to go up to tier 3 tech so fast, or at all, with hero style of the play. Is what you're looking to pressure and multiply, basically. You're like doing almost a Zerg strategy. Or maybe more akin to a Terran, I'm not sure. But a lot of units. A lot of units thrown, a lot of directions, maybe eventually culminating into one big push after just picking off too much from the Zerg player. Now, I think this really changes the tempo of the matchup for the Zerg, and Zerg is Vero tempo-based. That's why Tempo is a Zerg player, right? And that has been one of the first hurdles that the Zergs had to overcome. They had a certain expectation, kind of feeling-wise, pacing-wise, of this matchup, and then it got changed, and then it got changed, and now it's changed again. But now we have the situation being that Zergs are expecting this style of play, so they're already predicting that pacing of it, and they're also already getting a different build to accommodate for it as well. So not getting a fast Roachborn whatsoever, getting into that faster +1 melee, potentially opening themselves up to some of the earlier builds that Protoss can throw at them, like Resident Enclaves, Charge All In, that type of thing, but just relying on some superb scouting and prediction a little bit. To you know, hold that if they have to, but this is a very, very, very regular game of PvZ right now. ShoWTimE doing the macro thing is no surprise. Reynor currently reacting to him also is not necessarily surprising. Reynor will eventually start to just run around the Lings, if I guess correctly here. But yeah, we will see. ShoWTimE's actually just already committing to more oracles, by the way. So Hero does this occasionally, where a hero will add on a 4th oracle, and you might be like, oh, he's just adding on a 4th, but he does add on 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. That's usually in more of a defensive PvZ, though, I feel, where he's the one that's being attacked. He's predicting a Nidus Worm, or he's thinking of a, I don't know, just, yeah, more units than he can actually handle at the time. So also maybe some of like these queen pushes, he actually goes into mass oracle. But just to go into it in in conjunction with the stalker pushes, that's not something that Hero necessarily does. He keeps it at 3 until he's either sees an opening, like legitimate opening, or yeah, needs him for the defense. But ShoWTimE bringing them in is causing that additional problem that is a lot of Zerg players didn't have to anticipate in previous iterations of this matchup. They didn't have to worry about bringing the queens against what is majorly a ground army, because the oracles are almost like an afterthought, but then you really think about it and they're not. They're just equally as scary. So, you know, beforehand it was like, oh, they're going air, of course I'm gonna go anti-air. Oh, they're going ground, I'm gonna go grounds, for the most part, aside from some muta builds. But now you gotta be really careful. And ShoWTimE is providing this excellent pressure, so he's not losing too much. He's continuing to push forward and threaten. He's gonna be happy with some of the pickoffs, some of the trades as well, because his economy is also very good. 4 bases, one of them being in gold on 75 probes, and a 5th is already on the way. Reynor really needs to get a jab. He needs to mess up ShoWTimE's flow, which is usually something that Reynor is very good at. But the problem, why it's not so simple as that, is that if you do commit, let's say, 20, 30 lings to a run by or your roaches or whatever it is, you might not have enough to defend back at home, because this does snowball kind of in the blink of an eye. Initially, you're like, oh, you know, just a handful of stalkers. Like, it's not that bad. Don't worry about it. And then 8 more stalkers join in, and they get +2. And then suddenly you're like, well, I kind of wish I had those 20, 30 lings. So that's the scary part, is kind of letting this go, even when you've got mostly a handle on it. And then also another scary factor is being offensive in general, thinking that you see an open opportunity exactly like Reynor is doing and saying, okay, time to punch it, isn't actually the end goal anymore. You know, it felt like in the previous PvZs, there'd be one big punch from the Zerg player and the Protoss would, I don't know, feels like they would typically die. But in this case, with the oracles being included and the stalkers having such great mobility, and there's just so many of them, there's been no attempt to go into a bunch of, you know, archons, charge lots, colossus, something like that. Usually they can kind of drag the engagement out. In that case, though, I do think Reynor did get enough. He popped the 5th base, he did collide into quite a few stalkers, and the oracles really weren't as helpful as perhaps they could have been. They did not have a lot of energy, and there was some queen protection. Oracle gets popped. While that was going on, Zealots did go up to the top side and killed a base. But that's not necessarily a trade that ShoWTimE's going to be happy with. He definitely wants more. I don't know about this. This is really aggressive. This is overly aggressive. This is so bad from ShoWTimE. Oh, no. Yeah, that was way too much damage taken. If he had lost half the number of Stalkers on that recall, I actually think it's fine. Because with this style of Protoss, there's a little more to be said about trading out these units. You know, it used to be if you popped a Protoss army easily, you're like, oh my god, the Protoss, that was so expensive, it's gonna take forever to rebuild that! But now, to a certain extent, the number of Protoss units you kill doesn't actually mean that you've really set the Protoss back. They can warp in 8 more Stalkers because, oh, they're a little cheaper than Archons and Colossus and all that jazz. They're also usually on 4 or 5 bases behind it, and a bunch of gateways. So, yeah, I think if ShoWTimE lost, I don't know, that was 12 Stalkers and he lost 6, that's actually maybe a fair trade with the amount of banelings that were used. But ShoWTimE needs to make sure to never get below critical mass, basically. And I think he's already below it. So the Stalker numbers aren't going to be powerful enough. More are warped in, and some nice blink backs. Very patient on that, waiting until the very last second. And then blinking back into a shield body overcharge. And this is the type of engagement that really, I think ShoWTimE was hoping would happen over here. Where the Zerg thinks, okay, I'm breaking him, I'm getting it, I'm doing it. And then just kind of when you look at the end, suddenly there's more Stalkers than you really predicted and you don't have any more Banelings. Almost like a TVZ problem. When the Marines split and you're like, I'm getting them. And then the Marines collide back together and there's still 20 of them and you have 0 Banelings. But this is still actually very action-packed. The stack defense here really helping ShoWTimE out as he tries to reinforce this position, but then also continue pressuring Reynor's side of the map. He can't just let Reynor get to an amazing economy and continue to throw units at him without getting something set in return. That is always going to be bad news. So the Zealots do try their best. They're not going to actually get a hatchery, not going to get any drones at all, but they do pull the roaches away, and ShoWTimE can start building up an even better army and better defenses as well at his 4th base, all while having his 5th base up and running, by the way. Well, not quite. I think these probes are literally just transferred, but it's up and running, and it does have stack defense. So ShoWTimE, he is hanging on. He is hanging on, but a couple of these fights, we're talking, how many fights have been had? 4 or 5 fights, and then 6 to 10 more Stalkers live in some of those fights. And I think, you know, ShoWTimE's 20, 30 supply ahead, and he's the one that's actually winning. But they've just been a little too good for Reynor. It could still go topsy-turvy. Reynor could still overcommit, thinking that he's got a handle on this. He's winning the momentum war. And before you know it, he overcommits, and then ShoWTimE pounces back on him. That is still a real threat. But Reynor is handling this kind of nicely. Nice amount of roaches to deflect the Zealots on that left, right side. On the left, ShoWTimE isn't exactly making headway, but neither is Reynor. Reynor was continuing to tech up during all of this, however. He did get a hive, and he has just finished up adrenal glands. And these lings, sometimes they look really bad. The blink Stalkers blink back away from them. They never really get that many shots off. But if they do, if there's enough of them, and they get any type of surrounds, Stalkers are in for an extremely bad time. It also opens up more opportunities for better ling run buys as well when you get the crackling going. Quick cancel on that 5th base. ShoWTimE, it has a mobile army, especially with the Oracles flying around, but it is difficult to compete with the Zerg player, especially when they have all this creep spread around. So going extreme left to extreme right, yeah, that's going to be difficult to do for really either one of them. This is just getting to be a very, very large map. But ShoWTimE is starting to run out of this gold base, so we have to reconfigure our feelings on ShoWTimE's economy. This runs out, this has run out, this one's still fresh, but definitely need a higher economy to do what he's doing. So he does need to get that 5th base up and running. Last second splitty off of that creep to try and mitigate the Baneling damage is pretty good. Maybe could have split a little bit more. Get back in that micro challenge, ShoWTimE, excuse you. But it was actually pretty good at the end. And so much of his army is actually over on this right side where he's once again going to try and micro if he's paying attention. He's not paying attention. He warped in, then stopped paying attention because he's paying attention over on this left side. I don't know if that's actually the better call, but this left side is weak, so he goes for it. Drones go down. Hatchery goes down. On the right side, ShoWTimE might have lost more Stalkers than was strictly necessary. Reynor's the one that has to run away anyways. Oracles apparently were popping Ravagers while that was going on, as the Queens were out of place. But eventually the Oracles are forced to retreat as well. And it's back and forth, man. It's base for base at this point, but ShoWTimE is starting to run low on the actual minerals. And I'm very concerned about that, especially as Reynor starts adding in the Lurker Den. Now, the Lurkers, you can't build very many of them very fast, and they're going to need to kind of protect each other a little bit, right? So you can't just put 2 Lurkers on each base and say, yep, did my job, that's all defended. The charge lots will get a concave, the stalkers will focus fire. But if he can get to like 10 Lurkers while pushing ShoWTimE, having ShoWTimE on the defense, imagine this situation, boom, suddenly 10 Lurkers are right here. That'd be very difficult for Protoss to actually handle without anything better than Stalker and Zealots. So that is, I feel the clock ticking right now is if the Lurkers get on this side of the map. But first, of course, Reynor has to get to Lurkers, which he certainly is not going to get to right now. He is maxed out or close to maxed out anyways, trying to bust this base once again. It's a difficult process, though. Zealots and Oracles helping to take care of these cracklings, but also ShoWTimE getting some Zealots on the side of the map, killing some drones. Still a tit for tat, but right now it looks like ShoWTimE is barely taking the edge, barely taking the lead. Those Lings weren't having such a great time. I mean, they had Adrenal Glands and +3, but only +1 Carapace against ShoWTimE's +3 Zealots, so as bunched up as the Zealots were, the Lings really didn't do all that well. Now, these Lings are still very scary, but the Stalkers can blink back, blink back, blink back, and the Oracles get involved, the Zealots get on the front lines like they should, and suddenly Reynor doesn't have much to work with aside from Ravagers. And if it's just Ravagers left over, ShoWTimE will pounce on that guaranteed. ShoWTimE's also starting to push from a very close position into Reynor's equally important base. I was talking about ShoWTimE getting a base up, but Reynor also has lost a lot of his economy. He never rebuilt this base, or maybe he tried and it failed, I'm not sure, but he has also been thrown down to a more limited economy than he would hope for, considering how this game is going, which is constant battles back and forth, constant sacrifices on either side. So whoever does manage to come out of this a little bit ahead in the economy, currently ShoWTimE, might just be the reason they win, alongside any of their actual battle expertise, how the engagements are going. Love the inclusion of the Archons this late in the game. I know it sounds kind of weird. Well, why didn't you just do it earlier? Well, he has been using his gas most of the time, but also I think it has been a decision to be more mobile, less of a big old ball of Protoss, but now that it's going more into a big old ball of Protoss, he's expanding and attacking while defending his expansions. I think that this is going to add an element that Reynor's not necessarily prepared for, although he does have Lurkers, and there is no Observer, and he's whole positioning as well. That is going to be a committal that ShoWTimE is going to regret. The transfuses come down as well, and ShoWTimE is still going for this. He does get the Revelation. He pushes through the Lurkers, but that is still so much Zerg left over. There's 2 Lurkers on the left side as well. One still actually didn't get Revelated. 2 of them didn't get a Revelation on him, and ShoWTimE severely overestimating his army right there. There's 2 Lurkers that didn't get that Revelation, and there's ones on the backside anyways. But even without those Lurkers, the amount of damage he already took to the initial Lurker shots made it so that the amount of Ravagers that were still left over, I don't know, might have actually been enough, alongside maybe Ling reinforcements and Queen transfuses. But still, oh, that was an overexertion right there. That was ShoWTimE almost throwing the game, in fact, because I do believe he had quite a solid lead up to that point. But the Lurkers did their job as far as determining a fight in one single place. They are good at that. They are what draws the line in the sand. Now, if they start to spread them out a little bit more, that's when it gets concerning. But right then and there, that's exactly what Reynor needed. And now Reynor is going towards that exact position that I talked about earlier. I'm like a prophet right now. These Lurkers have both their upgrades? Yes, they do. A 1-1 as well. ShoWTimE has bulked up his army a little bit with these Archons, but really not enough. And coming in from 2 different angles might still not be enough against that many Lurkers. 15 of them, with nothing that really cracks them all that quickly. No Immortals coming in here, no Disruptors coming in here, and I think ShoWTimE did not beat the clicking clock. Ticking clock. Damn it, I was so close. God! ZombieGrub! You're fired. But seriously, I think that was the ticking time bomb there, was the Lurkers getting on the offensive. And it didn't help that he did, I mean, I guess in total, he did kind of throw the game right there. If he had pulled back when he should have and reevaluated, Reynor still didn't have that many lurkers. ShoWTimE could have maneuvered over to a different location and created more chaos elsewhere, but because he doubled down on that attack, yeah, he kind of recovered supply-wise, but he never recovered momentum or positioning-wise. So, yeah, that's going to be a GG. What a game, though. That was a very, very fun game.
He's probably.
Ooh, Kelzer's leading against Skillus. Surga's tanks, Surga's lurkers. What does Toss have? As far as siege units go? None? But that means that their army is kind of more mobile if they're not sieging. Although lurkers with speed burrow, am I right? I think even a siege unit. But what they do have is like disruptors and Colossus. Yeah, no bully. Huh. Maybe I don't usually have this many people watching me do qualifiers, or maybe there's an influx of people who are new to watching StarCraft tournaments. But just a PSA once again, there's no match after this. Whoever wins this qualifies. If you're looking at the bracket and you see Cyril and Ratata, look above them, it says qualified. They don't play each other. So, the winner of this doesn't face the winner of Kelzer versus Skillus. Now, the winner of this just is done. The loser is going to have to try again in another qualifier. But yeah. Just to get that out there. Bottom left, up 1. After a pretty sick game, he is Reynor. Top right, it is ShoWTimE. When it comes to qualifiers, here's a qualification point. So if it was top 1 qualified, then yeah, everyone would be playing out their series. Top 4, no, he just has to win to a certain amount. You can put the cat cam on. Right here. Cover this. That'll be okay. You guys don't need to see that. ShoWTimE was really close to winning that out, but then, at times, it was really just a tug of war. Reynor was also close to truly tipping the scales. And at the end, the Lurkers did it for him, but I mean, some of those battles in between, in the mid-game, I think Reynor is also very close to just straight up getting the win. When ShoWTimE was down to 130 supply, I want to say, I was concerned. I wondered. ShoWTimE was just going to lose right then and there, but the power of the economy and the relatively cheap Protoss units, I guess, kind of showed through, gave him that second win, second chance, got maxed out again, and was able to start to wear Reynor down. But yeah, Lurkers kind of stopped that. They really do change the dynamic quite a bit. Stargate opener from ShoWTimE once again. I think in a best of 5, it would be good. I don't know if it's likely. It'd be good of ShoWTimE to go for something not just a standard triple Oracle into Blink, right? But I don't know. He might not. And I wouldn't necessarily mind it either. ShoWTimE is really more of a straight and narrow Protoss player, but I think he also just has a lot of confidence in his macro game at the end of the day. Oh, got a Coop Tumor. And that if he was going to change things up, it wouldn't be a drastic change. It'd be changing up whether it's a 3-base or 4-base push or double forge, single forge. He might even be a player who would change this into the Blinkstalker Colossus way of playing the matchup that I was bringing up earlier, one of the older ways of playing. Just to throw Reynor off. But we'll see about that. If he does play all of these games, triple Oracle, super macro, okay, fair enough. But you know, the way that Reynor and a lot of Zergs are kind of default predicting the Blinkstalker game does leave some openings that Protoss players have tried to abuse, some more successfully than others. Thinking about the Dark Hero best of 5, where literally Hero was like, he's gonna be kind of greedy again. He's not gonna get Roaches in the early game. And that's exactly what Dark did, or didn't do. And Hero went for a cheeky charge build, but it still didn't work out, so... yeah. Theoretically, I think it was great. But it did not work. So that's ShoWTimE. That's what we expect from ShoWTimE. Reynor, can he do anything different? Is he going to change things up? I'm actually thinking no. I think he's going to react to the opener here, and then just play the tug of war game. And not because Reynor's known as just kind of a, macro player. I don't want to ever use the word boring for ShoWTimE, but, some people would say he is. He does a lot of the macro games repeatedly. And for some people, that's not exciting. Reynor, he absolutely would be the type of cheeky guy to throw in a Ling Bust or a Roach Ravager thing or a Queen Walk or whatever it is in this matchup. But, I don't know. In this matchup, it does feel like it's not working out so well for the Zerg to do that. The Queen Walk's not really working out anymore with the nerfs, and then Ling Busts are just kind of still a bit memey. Then we have a Nidus Swarm potential, I suppose. But, I don't know. That hasn't worked, actually, from the Zerg players who have tried it. Lambo and Dark both tried it against Hero, and they both failed, so... It does feel like right now, there's less experimenting to the extremes against each other in this matchup, and there really is just more experimenting on the minor points of, deflection and preparing against a certain push and stuff. Perhaps when the ladder map pool syncs up with the tournament map pool, we might actually see more random ass things come out of that, honestly. I think there is something to be said about the players that we don't see play. They're ladder heroes, if you will. But they do really wonky things, and a pro looks at it and is like, that's so freaking stupid. But... and then that kind of creates a new big all-in or big cheese. But now it's just... now it feels like ZvP has come to a macro conclusion, with the only variance really being if the Protoss player does a kind of fake third build, or maybe a 3-gas aggressive opener like Hero does. But still, kind of centered around the idea of Oracles and Stalkers. And that is a 4th base coming down for ShoWTimE. 4th base already down for Reynor. What's that called? A macro game. Oh, 8 drones have gone down. Oh, do we not have Game Heart? Ah, you bastards. We don't have Game Heart. There's been drones dying this entire time. 13 drones have died. 1 Oracle did fall for it. And, well, a second one's about to fall as well. Whoops. But still. That's a decent amount of damage done. Decent amount. Don't know if it's good for the cast to have the cat up, because I can see that and nothing else. Roddy literally has, like, his camera twice the size of this cat, okay? Are you saying Roddy's not cute to look at? Saying Ziggy's cuter? I'm gonna tell on you guys. So ShoWTimE starting to aggress here. Want to clear up that creep spread, keep the Zerg player sweating. In this case, though, Reynor has already gotten up to a good economy and decided to go more along the dark path of things, which is going into Ling Hydra, which I don't know if it was really determined to be the thing. I don't think that is true. I don't think it was a, you know, magic hard counter to what Hero was doing in Valencia, but it did work against him. So initially, some of the trades went a little bit differently, but then Hero started doing more of his normal thing, and we saw how getting into Hydras can be a bit dangerous. They were eventually kind of left alone, and the Stalkers take on Hydras on their lonesome pretty well. It's a numbers issue as well, but yeah, just go back and watch that series. And then there was the final game between Dark and Hero, where these turned into Lurkers and a Nidus Worm in the back, so that was super cool. And it does get you one step closer to Lurkers. It looks like Reynor's going to go for a big Ling, Baneling, Hydra, and kind of all his Queen's Bust. What this does is take away the power almost entirely of any of the Oracles. So like I was mentioning, Hero's gone into more defensive Oracles when he sees a push on the way. But you can't really do that against someone who brings the Hydras. You can do it against someone who brings Queens because they're so slow. They're very often not really a part of the fight, case in point, right here. But Hydra is not the same case. So the Oracles are only going to be useful for stasis traps, which is still useful. Taking an army out of the equation, as well as providing pseudo force fields, can be very helpful. But already, ShoWTimE is struggling. Some nice force fields come down, and that was eventually a good blink back. I was worried about the timing there. But that was a pretty good hold. All right, I was worried for a second, but now I'm not worried. He might have to give his 5th base, though. I think he does. I think he does. Yeah, and ShoWTimE agrees. ShoWTimE adding on Storm is that change up that Reynor might not be expecting. Again, kind of just course blinders on and just focusing on the hero style, which doesn't usually include blink. It can eventually, but maybe even this fast, not so much. So Reynor does get the first Storm to a face and goes, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. He might have seen the High Templar as well earlier on. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, just got confirmed. And that is just Stalker's face tank and a bunch of Banelings. And the good news is they can face tank a lot. I think it's 13 Banelings, I want to say, for a Stalker. Which, you know, if it's splashed on a bunch of Stalkers, might still be okay. But there is a little bit of some city, there's a little bit of sack defense. ShoWTimE, I think, is okay with that trade. He is banking quite a bit and just biding his time. Making sure that he's taking on a new aggressive Zerg. Very well. Thank you, Arkna13, for the Prime sub. ShoWTimE does need to be careful. The clicking, click clock, I definitely got right last cast. The clock is ticking. It's happening again. So instead of ShoWTimE trying to beat Reynor to it, kill him before he gets there, he's going to acknowledge that is inevitable. And he's going to go into Stargates, which I think is good. I think this is never really... Well, right here, when the Stalkers moved in here, there was a chance that this could be a hero-style game. All gateway, not a whole lot of splash, and mass expansions. But as soon as Reynor did what he did, I think ShoWTimE had to reevaluate, started booting up Storm, and now that he's playing kind of the more old-fashioned defend Protoss style of play, that will inevitably include getting to Stargates, because the ground army cannot take on mass Lurkers, or Brood Lords, if that is also what is on Reynor's mind. That army got a little too disjointed. Storms have to go down in a panic, which is never ideal. And the Stalkers do manage to run away. They still have a lot of Banelings left over, getting huge shots on top of the Stalkers, getting the Nexus as well. ShoWTimE is down to 5 Nexus, but his 5th one on the way is also in a very precarious position. And ShoWTime's little Zealot run by is going to do all that much damage. ShoWTimE did immediately remake his 4th base. But having to remake that, this one, I'm not even counting it. I don't think he can save it. Then also trying to afford to get into carriers, that's really expensive. And Reynor is not having the same issue. He's on 91 drones, 5 bases. He has a Spire, so he can start upgrading from there and get Corruptors if he needs to. Or just, well, Vipers, microing against the High Templars and all that. But yeah, Corruptors would do the trick. And this is certainly not the cool action-packed back and forth that last game was. It does seem like Reynor has successfully pushed ShoWTimE. Maybe there is still more game left to play as ShoWTimE holds on to this 4th base with the help of his brand spanking new carriers. Maybe there is more of a game to play. He also saved all the probes over here. Still at 85 workers, so needs to put them back on to the mineral patches. Even blinks forward aggressively against the leftover anti-air. These carriers are so sad. 2 interceptors among them. That Reynor has a lot of cash, a lot of options, and is not even retreating. He sees that those are just flying paperweights, and is like, whatever. Stays on the front of his creep, on the edge of ShoWTimE's base. Reinforces with Ling Hydra. Does get a greater Spire over any upgrade in Corruptor production. But now, I guess, going to Corruptors, have the option of turning them into Broodlords.
Thank you for becoming a member.
Pepperoni. Pepperoni. Thank you for that tier 1. Cat moved, guys. Confirmed, not a still image. ShoWTimE is starting to stabilize. I still worry about his ability to get a 5th base up. And I also worry generally about his ability to win a super late game against Reynor. It's tough. It's very tough. But he's living. He's alive. He's holding on. He's got one finger on the ledge and Reynor's trying to stomp on it. Maybe he's got 5 fingers. But still. It's not good. Do you really hold a ledge with your thumb, though? Not really. No, you don't. So I guess it'd be only 4 fingers. I haven't, hung off too many ledges, to be honest. Broodlords arrive, and they find a segmented Protoss army. Because that's what ShoWTimE's been doing. He's been trying to split up his army 50-50 to protect all of the bases. In this case, attempts to use half of his army to be offensive. He does find the hatchery, but loses his 5th. That's a kill, not a cancel, and is under all this pressure from the Broodlords to the top side. So as he races over to defend that base, he is going to run over all these queens, potentially any corruptors that he hasn't seen. We know there aren't any, but that is just the worry here. And I do believe the queens will be taken care of, but oh no, the Hydras are here. Never mind. The Hydras are gonna take all the interceptors. Just kidding. ShoWTimE has not much left in the bank. Literally, in his mineral bank, but also in his interceptor bank. So Templars are getting focus fired. All the Broodlords do die. But Reynor is reinforcing now with Ling Hydra, which I think means that these 4 carriers aren't exactly useless, but they're almost useless. They just won't have enough firepower to take on, I think, that many Hydras. More Corruptors really get that just, hovering around, chasing the carriers down. And I want to paint this as a real comeback opportunity for ShoWTimE, but I just can't. It's just too difficult. Thank you, Doug Lance, for the Prime sub, and 47ness for the 500 bits. Reynor does still have to be quite scared of some really good storms, which I knew there were some. There we are. Now he's going to add on Lurkers to help clear out this ground army. He knows that ShoWTimE can't have much left over. He's been on these 4 bases for the past 11 minutes. He's got to be mining out. And ShoWTimE is literally mining out. Natural's about to mine out. Third base and fourth, all on very, very low mineral patches. ShoWTimE's first foray onto Reynor's side of the map is successful. Finds the drones. Finds the base underdefended, but Reynor with some lings finds a undefended fourth base, or third, whatever it was, I don't know. These are cracklings. They got adrenal glands. Gonna tear up everything that's there. Not gonna be able to hit in the natural by the looks of things, but might also force the issue. And hold position, Lurkers! He was gonna wait for the High Templars as well. They got a little panicky. That might be an observer or a revelation. If Reynor wasn't as good as he was, there's a lot of chance. There's a lot of potential in ShoWTimE's comeback. For sure. ShoWTimE is such a good player. He has made this look like a possibility. And if Reynor was a bit worse, he had less bank, if he was hard stuck and they didn't make it Broodlord's work or something like that, then he might have already lost. But Reynor is as good as Reynor is. Which unfortunately means that ShoWTimE can't really depend on a comeback to happen. Oh, Reynor doesn't have the speed burrow for his Lurkers. This space does still have a decent amount of stack defense, but the natural has now been opened. So that's not going to hold very long. Sentry's not going to warp in time. Good attempt, though, from ShoWTimE, but ShoWTimE is going to tap out after pulling all of his probes. GG. Bit more of a one-sided flat Protoss versus Zerg there. That's awesome. Killers are actually won against Skilless. Not what I was expecting. Way to go, Killers. You guys can't hear it, but Ziggy is snoring. They made a very different map. And they still didn't put Game Hard on. Ah! I hope this map has 12 range spine crawlers. Spite them. Whatever, man. Bottom right up 2, it is Reynor. Top left, it is ShoWTimE.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Sorry, Zig. I gotta look at what they're doing. Reynor is going for a pool first, so that is different. Thank you, Grease Monkey, for the 2 months.
Resubscription
Cat Mike to go to the
received.
cat cam.
Apparently you are doing something right,
Okay, very
Captain.
sensitive, Mike. The Digital Chan, thank you for the 16 months. You guys really want to hear him snoring that badly? Ah, Reynor went for the pool first, and then a Proxy hatch. That is guaranteed to not be scouted. To not. It's guaranteed to be scouted. Because the drone has to walk past this forward wall off.
Twitch
So
Prime
then you'd be
summon
hoping that the
received.
player would just
Thank
think that it
you
was a
for
scout,
appeasing
which is
the overlord.
very uncommon / never is done in this matchup in the professional leagues. There's a drone headed to your base, it's because they're blocking your base or they're proxy hatching. So usually if it went like this, it passed by the front wall, it'd be a block, but obviously not. This is clearly where ShoWTimE was planning on taking his base, IMO. So Reynor is actually going for more of the proxy hatch idea. So sometimes that'd be put out here or maybe here, but now it's going back here. So, Gropum, thank you for the Prime sub. I will do cat treats maybe after this game, if I remember. But I don't usually when I do casting days. So, ShoWTimE, he's handling this as calmly as possible, but I am worried that calm is maybe not what he needs right now. It's not really a terrible idea to add on a forge against someone who is legitimately proxy hatching you. But I guess the issue is, like, is it though? Is it a proxy hatch? Because then, like, drones didn't come with this and, like, spine clothes aren't being built, right? So that's the other type of proxy hatch that we would see. If it was, again, just a block, then you're not even really worried. They're eventually going to cancel it or just... yeah, cancel it. But this is more like a proxy hatch, even without spine crawlers. So that's why I'm afraid that ShoWTimE taking a chill pill here may not have been the right thing. I don't know, though. I don't know. I have concern. Shield battery in range of that Cybernetic core? Hopefully. Well, this is just annoying, isn't it? ShoWTimE's gonna add on gateways instead of any additional technology. Deal with this, and then maybe even try and do a counter. He might add on a robo as well. A Stargate wouldn't have been a terrible idea, but I guess he's thinking that maybe his natural will be under too much fire. Wait, no, that doesn't make any sense. I was thinking of gas for a second there, but he's plenty of gas off 2 gases. Oh, the Zealot wasn't blocking, you bastard! The shield battery is the first thing to be targeted, and this was just... yeah, this was difficult. This was a difficult thing to really predict what was going to happen. And now ShoWTimE does have 3 gateways, and that production is going to outproduce Reynor, for sure. And then there's the Robo, so Warp Prism will eventually come out. Reynor hopefully is predicting this. He hasn't got back into the main, but he saw 2 gateways, and there's really only one thing a Protoss can do after that fact, right? And what you don't really want to do in StarCraft is just literally focus on only the thing right here, right now. That goes for, you know, macroing and microing, but it also goes for kind of keeping up with the pace of a game. So if ShoWTimE only made gateways and had no thought as to the future, he was just like, oh my god, I'm under attack, I gotta build gateways and get units. Great, you have a bunch of units and they gotta go across this map, giving Reynor probably plenty of time to actually defend. And you have no reinforcements either because you can get a Warp Prism, so is that enough? So you gotta think a little bit farther ahead. And ShoWTimE obviously is. But the question is more so, is Reynor? Is Reynor gonna predict a Warp Prism coming out? In this case, it is an Observer first because of the creep spread, but I wouldn't be surprised if a Warp Prism was added and then Harassments was done with 2 Adepts. Actually, I love this. ShoWTimE built a pylon and then is gonna use that to go for the harassment. But then if the Warp Prism comes across the map, it could ferry those around, do more damage. So at the end of the day, I do think that Reynor overcommitted to this. He kept on making lings when I think it was clear that he wasn't going to snowball. Even these lings, right? Bad idea. Speed isn't going to be done. They're all going to die before speed really kicks in. And even if speed had kicked in, there wasn't that many lings. Yeah. Don't know if that was a great idea. So Reynor is on not a very good economy, and ShoWTimE takes his 3rd base. So that was a really difficult game to call for both of them, but it's probably also a very unique game for both of them. At the end of the day, I think ShoWTimE's calmness did favor him. For a second, it looked like it might have screwed him over, but it did favor him. And Reynor's committal to it is screwing him over. He really needs to get back on the droning. It's gonna be... It's literally 2 base of 3 right now. ShoWTimE was forced to evacuate those adepts, but he has that war prism like I was talking about, so he can just ferry them around and... Or to go for an actual attack. It'd be kind of an interesting one. It'd be very Wings of Liberty-esque. But it might work. Certainly the adept harassment would be the much safer option, but... Let's see. Oh, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Thank you, No Fuss, for the Prime sub. Now Reynor needs to produce a not that big of an army, but he does need to produce an army over on a very low economy. So if ShoWTimE doesn't just get bopped here, if ShoWTimE's entire army doesn't just die, so he gets counterattacked, he will be in a much better position. Much better. Reynor tried to set up a bit of a surround here, but the adepts that came forward eventually were the perfect counter to the Ling surround. Push that off, and ShoWTimE realizes I've made Reynor build a ton of army units. The only thing that would kill me is if I get completely surrounded and then I have nothing back at home. Let's just pull back. He pulls back. Reynor has not much gusto here. He's up 10 army supply, which doesn't really mean very much in this matchup. And a War Prism's going to be able to micro things. Shield battery's done. Reynor, tricky build was not successful. Not successful at all. GG. I should have canceled the hatch, taken the L. I actually didn't mind it when he had, 2 queens and his initial maybe 12 lings that he produced. I thought that was okay. Well, the 12 lings from the proxy hatch plus the 6 that he made from his regular hatch that was attacking the front. I think that was an okay moment to stop and then go into drones. I think. But then he kept making more and more lings. I want to say that he made 16 more lings after that or something. I don't know. Ooh, I finally have a new external hard drive. I've had my old one for years and it is full up. So I finally bought a new one. A real boomer moment when you go and buy things of data just because you remember 6 years ago when this was really expensive and now it's just the cheapest option. So I think I bought my last external hard drive probably for university, so 10 years ago. And it had a terabyte. And that was a lot, right? But I was doing 3D animation and that was going to take up a lot of space. Now I go and Google and I'm like, okay, what should I buy? And it's like 2 terabytes for $60. And I'm like, Jesus. Flipping technology. Don't even get me started on middle school years. Okay, you had the tiny little like thumb drive. It was 1 gigabyte, and you were like, "Whoa!" I still have those. I should really get rid of them. On the bottom left of Inside and Out, it is Reynor, who is still up 2 to 1. Sorry, and in the top right, ShoWTimE getting that last map, not dying to the cheese. A cheese that I don't think Reynor has experimented with all that much with the way that it was executed, but also because that just makes sense. These maps have been out for the public, I guess, They've been out competitively, there we go, for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. But they have not been in the ladder map pool. So while these guys are getting a lot of experience with them, because a lot of the tournaments are requiring you to play on it, that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting all of the experience you would get if you were just spamming ladder games over and over and over again. And, you know, also Reynor's just not that type of Zerg player most of the time. It's like to do a proxy hatch. So I just don't think that was his most practiced build, but it did have a moment. It had a moment where it looked quite scary. But then that moment passed, and it completely snowballed the other direction. Do it again. Do another proxy hatch. I don't know about that one. ShoWTimE, not forced to deal with any early game shenanigans, is going to open up with a Stargate once more. Ziggy has to rest from his last sleep, exactly. CG, your boomer is showing from my gigabyte and terabyte talked. So dumb how fast technology moves forward, alright? It's dumb. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm even as educated as I am on the subject of PC building, which is not very much, but I've done it, which is more than most of the population. Because otherwise, I'd have no idea that they have advanced on from SSDs. You know, I did get the memo about hard drive versus solid-state drive whenever that happened years ago. Don't remember how or when, but I did. But this whole, like, the NVMe thing, that was completely because I was looking up to build a new computer. And they were like, oh, well, this is now cheap enough technology that this should be default. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And now I boot up my mother's computer, which was my old computer, my old laptop that I bought 8 years ago. And I just I wanna die. It takes so long. And you know what we boot up our computer for? To play Plants vs. Zombies. These video games are fun, but also they help with recovery from a stroke, so yeah. It's very frustrating watching her play, though. Just because, you know, she doesn't know what a build order is, alright? Like, Plants vs. Zombies, I was like, look, here's what you do. You're supposed to get the economy up, and then you're supposed to get the shooting plants up. And she just won't quite grasp that. Not because of her stroke, just because of being a legitimate boomer. So I boot it up, and then I leave her alone, because, ugh, I get so frustrated. I'm still not as teched out as many other people. I mean, Nathanius is probably the most tech-savvy of any of us. Fear Dragon knows quite a bit as being a programmer, I suppose, but... Yeah, and then there's the other extreme, which is, like, Tasteless doesn't know much of anything about computers. Rotterdam's kind of right behind him, to be honest. Rotterdam has to get help with setting up his mic and stuff, but... Yeah. I'm somewhere in between. What do we have going on, by the way? Triple Oracle, 4 gases, 3 bases, but a Warp Prism and Gateways on the way. So ShoWTimE is changing things up. He's going to go for an earlier attack, a earlier, more committed attack as well, not just like a little bit of a poke that is meant to retreat very quickly. He's going to go for an actual attack, and Reynor, I don't know how Reynor has been doing scouting-wise in this game, because a lot of it has been the expected. So if he's not checking around, seeing if there's a 4th base on the way, the gases, not actually getting anything to the main base, obviously, then this can be a very, very, very good tactic. Right now, Reynor might be thinking, oh, this is bothersome, but I'm not sure it's really committed. And then he's going to see the Warp Prism and know, but this is a better late than never again, right? At least he has some time to try and prepare now. Warlings are on the way. Hydralistan was on the way, is canceled in exchange for a Roach Warren. But ShoWTimE has got the bamboozle. Reynor was 100% expecting triple Oracle, lots of expansions, bit of poking and prodding, and then a back and forth. This is more committed. And actually, 48 lings? I mean, that's actually a lot of lings. And they got +1 melee as well. And Stalkers do have +1 as well, but I think it's far more important their ability to blink back out of the surrounds. The force fields cut off the reinforcements, and that is a beautiful engagement so far. Reynor has managed to buy enough time to get some roaches, but the roaches really aren't that intimidating anymore. ShoWTimE has kept almost all of his Stalkers alive, so the numbers game is one out here. As long as ShoWTimE doesn't just literally A-move and nothing else. Focus fires, he dances around certain stack defenses. There you go, focus fire, focus fire. And then I think he's gonna be good to go. ShoWTimE has managed to bamboozle Reynor very effectively. And Reynor's gonna be kind of shaking his head at that one because this was something he just wasn't thinking of. I gotta believe. Not a lot of scouting in case of something like this. Now, drones are pulled, causing a little bit of chaos, and ShoWTimE has to reevaluate that very bold blink forward, but he is still good. His War Prism's still active. Plenty of Stalkers still alive, although they are now heavily injured. And Reynor is going to be forced to go to Game 5, man. Yep, GG. Thank you, No Fuss, for gifting a sub. Appreciate that. Jesus is a genuine Jar Jar Binks. So you're saying his casters are boomers nowadays? That's kind of true, but I actually think that just, I don't know how many players are really that tech savvy, to be honest. I think there's just the idea is kind of that because you're nerdy in one thing, you must be nerdy to things that are kind of related, but not really. So we think, players, they're younger, they're obviously on the computer all the time, they're playing video games, and I guess we're doing the expectation that like a real boomer has, where it's just like, you're into tech things, you should know stuff. But I'm actually pretty sure that it's the same amount of variance, variance, ratio. It's like the same ratio of people amongst the players who are really good with, I guess, general computer stuff. And then people who are just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What is sound settings? Have you know Taste has studied multiple subjects in college? Yeah. Back in 1999. When the Macs with the monitor, and computer built into the monitor situation that had the different colors were the most popular PC. Actually, I think that was before that. It might have been more like 2005 or something. Anyways, bottom left, Reynor, top right, ShoWTimE. Tropical Sacrifice being the final battleground here. Remember seeing the those Macs in the movie Swim Fan. So whenever that came out. Please, Gameheart. Yeah, well, keep hoping. I'm telling you. These players. Lunchbox special trying to handle Streamlabs. Yeah. Actually, I think I talked to No Regret about this. Just came up in a conversation. Just in, he's generally the fixer. He's like the handyman of all the computers and streaming and stuff. Of the Foreigner team house. Not because he was the one that was keen on learning about it. He just was the only one that would do something. So. You think Cyril's mom asks him for help with their email? Yes, I do. Isn't it funny we kind of fell into the same distribution? No, is that really the word I was looking for? Anyways, doesn't matter. we kind of fell into the same trap that we accuse older people of doing, which is that we assume based on age that people would be more or less savvy with technology. And that's just, I think, from a personal experience in my generation, was never true. People would assume that I was tech savvy because I was young and I was into video games, I guess, kind of. They didn't act, I mean, I guess I wasn't as well known for being into video games as I am now, obviously. So that wasn't even the case. It was just because I was young. And that is true to an extent. Like, there's, you know, the younger you are, the more kind of intuitive you find some of these, like, applications and programs and stuff. Because you're literally, like, we're brought up on the idea that you swipe and whatnot. But on many other things, like, not so much, right? Like, no, I can't actually fix your PC if you have malware on it. Like, I don't know, you're as screwed as I would be. But I know from my generation, yeah, I knew a little bit more. I think I built my first PC when I was 16, maybe. But not because I was young. Just because I wanted to. And I saved up my own money for it. So I knew plenty of my peers who all they could do was text. Very fast. They were fast texters, to be fair. And it was on the old flip phone as well. But God, if you ask them anything about PC gaming, they would be so confused. And I have no doubt that it continues along every generation from here on out. A little depth pressure coming in here, but so far so good for Reynor's defense. It was a ling and a creep tumor. Oh my gosh. It's going to be into 2, probably 3 oracles. Third base is going to try and come down. And that does require the oracle to help out. The lings are being a bother, but ShoWTimE was not eager to send the oracle across the map in the first place. Someone mentions the real old times where you kind of had to know really how a computer worked to get a program working. It is true. You see all like the hacker movies from the 80s and the amount of code that even the movie Big, and that kid was into video games and he was playing a video game where you had to type in to get the reaction from the computer. I never played those, but I know some people who did. And I already thought that's more work than many people have to do nowadays. Then you actually being able to figure out how to get an application open back in the olden times. It's kind of difficult. Fortunately, my parents were both, you know, they had to work with computers, as many people's parents do, but they were savvy enough to teach me how to open up, you know, Oregon Trail on the Mac 98 or whatever it was that we had in our shared computer room. The last generation. No, I'm not going to do that bullshit. See all the Facebook memes and articles written, and it's like, we're the last generation that did X or Y. It's like, yeah, okay. We all acknowledge that it's no longer the 1700s, or even prior to that, probably. We're like generation to generation, everything was the same. It's been different for a long time now. You can all just assume it's gonna be different for the next generation. Anyways. One oracle stays at home, handles any of those ling run buys. 2 oracles go for the harassment. Hasn't really done very much since then. Double checking, because I did not get game heart. Okay, yeah, 4 drones. Not a big deal. And it goes into the macro game. There's ShoWTimE setting up to get the 4th base as well already. Ooh, ShoWTimE's gonna add on another oracle. Seems he's a fan of adding on many oracles. The moracles. And ShoWTimE's going to start a little bit more of the serious pressure. Blink and +1 finish up. Oracles will help cover any of the retreat that isn't covered by Blink itself. And already having some sack defense back at home means that Reynor has been unsuccessful with any attempt to do a Ling run by. Or a Ling interruption, whatever you want to call it. I was back a few, the shared computer room. Yeah. I think I had my first personal PC. It was actually a Mac. I think I got a Mac laptop for school, I guess, was the excuse. That's why I got into Blizzard games, because Blizzard would actually play on Mac, and that was the only thing I had, so. Oh, you know what? I got it because I wanted to be an artiste, and I definitely bought in a little bit to the idea that artists use Macs. It was a Mac Mini. God, now I'm really remembering. This little block. So weird. And then right afterwards, I got a desktop in my room. Anyways. Poking and prodding. Reynor does have that +1 melee. Raptor's built up as well. I'm just trying to make sure he doesn't take a silly engagement. I think that's the real fear, is that you think you are prepared to take on the Stalkers, then they blink away, the Oracles pop their Pulsar Beam, and you have misread the situation. So as much as it looks like Reynor should be able to do something about all this canceling of hatcheries and killing of creep tumors, he's got to be very careful. I can imagine playing Oregon Trail now. No, it's too freaking hard. I get annoyed. So I don't play any of the old NES games either. Oh wow, that was a big stasis trap. Good lord. ShoWTimE continues expanding to the north side, up to that 5th base, leaving the south side actually kind of barren for both sides. I mean, there might be where future Zealot run-bys may occur. Right near Reynor's 4th. And Reynor goes up to that high for the adrenal glands. Why 5 oracles, though? I don't know. Just felt right, maybe. And the Zealot run by to the north did not work out. That was just where the units were. ShoWTimE will be adding on +3 and some Archons eventually. We're well and truly deep into the hero style of play, but Archons might eventually get added on. Got to be constantly pushing. Ooh, Oracle swoop up to the north. They saw that it was only Lings defending, perhaps. They're going to try and take some of that out. Yep. ShoWTimE even tries to micro this so the Zealots don't all run into the Banelings. Didn't quite work out. He also had to redirect his attention over to the right side. But there's the Zealot run by in the south, and that is very effective, because there's really nothing down there that was scouting that. So, yeah. And the drones being transferred at exactly the wrong time. And there's those Archons being added on. Hoping to wash away some of the adrenal gland lings, which don't actually have it quite yet, so this is a good push timing. Archons, hello, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, bud, come on. And this is a very scary push for Reynor to hold. He's still kind of on basic units that don't do well when they can't get a full surround. And with force fields as well as kind of a choke going on here, it's going to be very difficult for him to get a surrounds. ShoWTimE has to be very careful too, though, because as soon as he gets partially surrounded or he doesn't anticipate a backstab or just doesn't have any force fields left over and the Archons aren't in the right position, then the Ling Baneling can kill a lot of his Stalkers. He's going to go for the splits, but again, maybe not the best of splits. He's very patient with his blinks, by the way. He really is waiting to the last second to pull back. That the Archons are almost all gone. This one Archon's going to be a baller and take out a couple of these Banelings. Oracle's also helping out as the Queens are not on the front line, currently tangling with a couple of Zealots, which are cleaned up. So the Oracles get a couple of Banelings. We're going to get a couple of Ravagers as well. And ShoWTimE continues to push forward. He's expanding in this direction. He's reinforcing in this direction. So damn close to the heat of the action. All without a Warp Prism. And Reynor is struggling to hold on. His supply looks okay, but he's got some locked up in maybe these Ultras. Some Roaches that I think are really helping overall. And ShoWTimE is about ready to go for round number 3 of this particular spot of attack. ShoWTimE is going to also send his Zealots out of the south once again. Maybe take care of this base. Because Hero uses 5 Oracles? Hero doesn't always use 5 Oracles, though. I don't know if it's that specific. Like, he would get more Oracles... anyways, not to go into it again. Not to go into it again. There were times where Hero got more than 3, and other times where he did not. That's all. ShoWTimE was ready to go again, but Reynor had actually finally popped with more units, including the Ultras, but Chitinous Plating isn't done. This is a grand opportunity for ShoWTimE to, yeah, just pierce through the hull, take them down. 2 Ultras down without helping a whole lot, and not a lot of fodder to support these Ultras either. So again, situation where ShoWTimE can easily snipe them. So as it seems to be more and more common these days, kind of comparing this to almost TDZ. More shield batteries would be nice. Soak up those Archons, baby. I am a little surprised that Reynor did not once again go into Lurkers, considering that it worked out for him well in the first game, but possibly in this game not thinking that he had the time to do so. It was rather close in the first game after all. But the Ultras aren't really cutting it right now. And ShoWTimE also has 2 Robos pumping out some Immortals, which will very much help against the Ultras. Still help against the Roaches that are kind of sprinkled through here. And just generally chunky units will soak up a lot of those Banelings too. Not nearly as mobile, but it's no longer really a mobile situation. There is one big fight, the most important fight on the map happening on ShoWTimE's 6th base. Reynor actually thinks that he can push into this, which seems awfully bold. I mean, the high ground, the choke, the shield batteries, the army composition. I don't know about that one. They do manage to take out a kind of an even trade initially, and the Stalker's not blinking back currently. Stalker's not blinking back at all. They took so many Ultra Cleaves to the face for seemingly no reason. Was I wrong? Maybe Blink only did just come off a cooldown? Maybe ShoWTimE was focusing on his Zealots going through the south side. I'm not sure, but does lose a bit more supply than anticipated. The Immortals eventually came through. Charge Light reinforcements came through, and that base finally falls. And these Zealots are just going on a freaking adventure. Reynor probably needs to think about expanding again to the south. He got this one up and running and is sending a lot of drones over there. He is starting to run out of mineral patches, but he definitely needs to think about this one, and then maybe he can even get this one. If he had enough double expand, I think he absolutely would, but a little low on the cash. Trying to rebuild an army. ShoWTimE has already rebuilt his. He's had a lot of bases, 93 workers for a lot of this game, all untouched. So it is Reynor who is struggling to get the economy up and running. As ShoWTimE continues to push forward. Without Lurkers, I feel like this is just going to be a bit repetitive. ShoWTimE is going to take the better engagements. He's going to be able to replace more units if they do trade out. And ShoWTimE is eventually going to drain Reynor of his income, bank, soul, willpower. And then it'll just be a very almost lame ending. Things can still go poorly. Being out of position, classic way to lose a StarCraft game. Underestimating your opponent, also a classic way to lose. But ShoWTimE very rarely does that. In fact, I'd say that ShoWTimE's more often accused of over-evaluating his opponent, thinking that his opponent's in a better spot or is a better player than he maybe actually is. Because there is that's kind of the way I think a lot of people's brains are on instinct. It's either, oh my god, this guy's so much better than me, I'm gonna have such a tough time. And it's like some random person on ladder, or it's the opposite, which is like, this guy's nothing, he's shit, whatever, I'm gonna win. Anyways, this was a very clumsy move forward onto that creep. The surround finally happened for Reynor, and there you have it. That is one way that Reynor is going to make the comeback happen. ShoWTimE had no room to maneuver out of that. He was surrounded. His immortals, obviously, they can't blink, so many of them died, and they were the perfect response. They just needed to have something actually properly protect them. ShoWTimE just lost so much right there. Although he still has all of these bases, and I think that his lead up until that point will help him recover to a stable position. That does make things a lot sketchier. A couple of probes went down to a Baneling run by, and now we have Lings getting on top of these cannons. Very quick response, however, as ShoWTimE's army is still centered around these topside bases. And ShoWTimE needs to keep, an eye on the bottom. Needs to keep an eye on these very important bases of Reynor. Definitely needs them. I already forced to cancel one, but it was at least a cancel. And the Warp Prism could just pick up these Zealots and move on. There's no Corruptors to chase this down, so the Warp Prism is going to be very annoying. I wouldn't even mind a Dark Shrine. But currently, ShoWTimE cannot afford that. He needs all of his gases up and running, which he's yet to get. These ones are still missing. Yeah, just keep being a bother. The Queen's try to respond, but that is so much dead space. I don't think they should be able to kill the Warp Prism. Just barely not. Zealots buy some time there. And now they're gonna kill all the Queens. Reynor's not paying attention necessarily. Up there we go. Now transfusing, sending Lings over to that point. And in the north, we have a big ol' Baneling train. Killing a bunch of probes. 24 of them go down. Nexus also looks like it's gonna fall here. There we go. And how much is Reynor going to be punished for that? Probably not a lot. The Stalker numbers aren't that high, so as far as their ability to blink and chase and focus fire down in Ultra, it's very limited. And I don't know about that blink either. Yeah, it's a good army for the Protoss, and this time they're not going to be surrounded, but he's still going to be really careful. But I think that was actually a brilliant opportunity to take an engagement. The Ultras are going to literally try and force their way through an Archon wall with Immortals behind it, so that was not going to look too hot. Reynor very correct in pulling back there, but does get punished a little bit then. So, base for a base. Reserve bases are cheaper, but also maybe this base going to go down too. Immortal coming in is going to help chonk down the hatchery. Archon coming in is going to help against the Lings, including the Zealots. Where are the upgrades at, by the way? 3-2-1 on the Protoss' side, and 3-3 all into the Baneling Ultra side of the Zerg. Okay. Would not mind an additional armor upgrade for ShoWTimE. Either armor or shield. But that is very, very costly. Something that I think he's just kind of not necessarily forgotten about, but decided at a certain point, like, I really can't afford to do that. I don't think it'll be beneficial enough to invest into it. Which I think is fair. But I do wonder. Especially for these Archons, getting that shield up. Oh well. Zealots were hoping to find a new base to kill, or maybe get a quick cancel on. Reverse that, cancel or quick kill on. Doesn't find anything but death. Where is the Stargate transition? Just as difficult to make as a Broodlord transition in this case, which means that they could take very tiny steps towards it. Build the Spire. Eventually build a Greater Spire. Build a Stargate. Maybe a Fleet Beacon, then more Stargates. It could be a slow process and kind of a risky one as well, because you can start the infrastructure process fine enough as both players, but then actually affording a bunch of Corruptors and Broodlords or a bunch of carriers, that would be a lot of supply out of these main engagements and just a lot of money, right? So that'd be an open opportunity for this type of game to snowball in the favor of the person who isn't teching up, because they're just throwing bodies at you and you have 30 supply locked up in units that don't help you quite yet. That's how things go bad. But speaking of bad, that was pretty bad. 3 Ultras get popped for almost free there as they were left behind. Reynor was trying to go down south to protect his very important base, but in the process lost a few very expensive units. And this is more so what I was predicting to happen. But then ShoWTimE did move into the center of the map and got completely surrounded, so that can still happen. Reynor is trying to remax and has finally cleaned up that particular army, which does put ShoWTimE a bit less on the supply, but this army barrels through. Goes into the natural, finds the Spire, takes that Greater Spire option out of the equation, takes down a Hatchery, Roachborn, even the Ultralisk Cavern could be a goner, but it looks like ShoWTimE, he wants more than that. He's gonna go up to the main ramp. That is the most brutal choke that he can abuse, and of course he could always recall if Reynor decides to go for the base race, which at this point is the only thing that Reynor really could do, is try and go for a base race. Shield Battery Overcharge is activated, but there's so few Protoss units that this Nexus is basically a goner, and the question is, does ShoWTimE do enough damage and recall at the right time? His recall is not going to be all-encompassing, just too fat of units to get all of them in there, and where does he recall to? He recalls to the base that's under attack. A bit of a dangerous move for a Protoss player, but his army is so chonky, and it's actually partially protected in the mineral line right there, that the Ultras couldn't really do it. More Immortals come forward right now. ShoWTimE needs some reinforcements, however, as the Immortals have lost their barriers. The Ultras are starting to go down, but Ling reinforcements, where are they? Are there anywhere? Reynor has 2,000 minerals in the bank and 15 larvae and is currently without a spawning pool, so he can't really make the Lings to try and capitalize on the momentum, and he is going to be so sad about that. Now he's trying to respond, but ShoWTimE scuttles his way back to the main ramp. These two Archons, the two Immortals, kind of perfect against the competition currently chasing them. Of course, they can't be recalled. They will have to give their lives here. The question is, how much will they trade out for it? It looks like with some micro on the Ultras, they won't be able to pop one of them. Here you go. It's down to that. It's down to microing individual Ultras against the Protoss army, and ShoWTimE at the end of the day does lose an expensive, important chunk of his army without really trading out too much. But he saved his Nexus. He's still on 61 probes. He's been building Immortals this entire time, so he's trying to replace them lickety split. Now I would be most concerned maybe about the Lings, actually. Oh, the War Prism just went down with an Archon inside of it, I think. Maybe an Immortal. That's also pressure now off of Reynor, and ShoWTimE is struggling to replace his army. Reynor, I mean, he's making a lot of his army out of Lings currently because he doesn't have a lot of gas, but that many minerals and Lings? Yeah, that's actually really scary. ShoWTimE, oh, had another War Prism? Literally just had another War Prism. And a Shield Battery Overcharge, oh, is going to help so much, but the Corrosive Bile is going to take that down. No, they're not. They didn't target it. And plus, there's only 2 Ravagers, so it wouldn't be able to kill the Shield Battery anyway. ShoWTimE now leveling out the supply. Marches through here. He's still got 3 bases mining, as does Reynor, but where are the armies going to hit each other? Is it going to be good enough for ShoWTimE? Or will Reynor actually have enough transfuses, perhaps? That's a lot of queens. I did not take into account how many queens he was building. Good lord. They're not all full up on energy, though, but it's 14 queens! They're gonna try and keep all of these Ultras alive forever, but I'm afraid that's impossible. That is a lot of Immortals piercing through. The Archons help to wash away those Lings, and the Queens themselves add no DPS to this. They were just all in on the idea the Ultras could do it, and 2 more Ultras are about to pop. Lings are hoping to find some great surround, but it looks like ShoWTimE might have been able to do it. That is pretty crazy. I mean, that's kind of what I called personally like 8 minutes ago, but then there is still so much to keep track of. There's so many opportunities for a full surround again like this to actually be devastating to ShoWTimE, but this time around there just isn't enough units. So Reynor is gonna have to tap out. He's gonna have to try again. He's gonna have to play in another qualifier. G freaking G. ShoWTimE with the reverse sweep. 3-2. Qualifies for TSL9. Awesome games. Awesome games. Really happy that's the PvZ meta looks like that, by the way. That could have been the most boring best of 5 4 months ago.